Okay, we'll get started here, and let's see what I've got on board. Glad to see you, Martin. And let me do some quick housekeeping kinds of things. I'll shut the door so I don't disturb people. But today, just want to get us lined out on where we are. On the 15th, which is Wednesday, there will be a pre-recorded screencast. I've got to haul some people to the doctor again, and so I'm going to record that, and then Wednesday it'll be there for everybody to see. So that will be the 15th. Now I want to go down to see who else is in here now. Glad to see Olivia and Christian. And again, just don't forget on the 15th, which is Wednesday, there will be a pre-recorded screencast there. So all you'll have to do is just beam into that and take a look at it. I want to go over here to the modules and just do some housekeeping for us and see where we are in the course, because we're coming to an inflection point in the course. Today I've got some materials. We're going to look at chapter 12, and then on Wednesday I'll look at chapter 13 and then add some additional kinds of things in for you to do. Usually it's something like, it's usually something from Ted that's going to be insightful, that's related to the material. Now, also I have some resources. We'll talk about those today a little bit. Now, on the 20th, okay, which is a week from today, next week, basically, we start flex time. Now, in my courses, when I get near the end of the semester, I give you usually one or two big projects, and then, of course, you have a final. So I give you some flex time to work on them, okay? And I don't hold class. Now, what I will probably do is I'll probably beam in and just have the page up or something, like I would with a virtual office in the event that someone has a question or a problem. But you have the flex time to work on your final exams. Okay, and then of course on Wednesday the 22nd would be a Thanksgiving. So let me pop back from here on that. Like I said, we're kind of one of those junctures. I'm about to go nuts. I'm able to get my cursor. There we go. All right, now that's on the 30th. That's on the 20th and the 22nd. Now, on the 27th and the 29th, same story. This is a flex time. Okay, you can work on your finals, and then on the 4th, okay, of December, same story there. Okay. So I'm giving you 2 or 3 weeks here to work on final exams, to work on these two projects. Here is one, that the infotainment packages comparison, okay? And then this is a self-developed quiz from the hyper-socialization text, okay? Now, you have this due the 12th and this due the 12th, which would tell you your final exam is on the 12th, your final exam period. Let me open this up for just a second, okay? Now, we don't have, as I've mentioned this before, we don't have a 2 to 3:15 time slot at OBU. So we go what is closest. Your final exam period is Tuesday, the December 12th, okay, at 3:15 to 5:15. Now, that being said, you say, can I work ahead? Could I have that all done and turned in before? Absolutely. These are due, okay? Okay, these are due at the start of the final exam period, okay? These project kinds of things. And if you've had a class with me, that's kind of how I do it. Same story here. And I give you some instructions, and that's due at 3:15 on the 12th of December.
Dr. Harmon.
And then on the 12th of December, this quiz on chapter 14 will close. This quiz on chapter 15 will also close and that will do it for you, okay? So you have time, and if you're smart, you'll work ahead. People who come in and try to do all of this in 2 hours are out of their mind. Well, you can't, because these are due at the start of the final exam period. People that try to come in and cram these, I would recommend you really don't, okay? Take your time with them. Now, I'll look at this for just a minute, and I'll tell you how many. It's unlimited attempts, okay, within a 1 hour time limit. So within 1 hour, you can submit, attempt the exam as many times as you want, okay? That's allowed, and that's in the final exam period. Same thing on the chapter 15, excuse me, same thing. Okay, now note, some of these questions differ in point value, and I don't think anybody cherry picks questions, but if you do, you have been warned. And then I've got the instructions for the luxury vehicle infotainment package comparison, and then the SDQ. This, of course, deals with the aspect of social media and how companies can use them. And that fits certainly within MIS. And then the infotainment package is related to that piece where we talked about in enterprise computing, where we try to establish a high level of customer intimacy, okay? And infotainment packages provide automotive companies, advertisers, people who sell things like the people at SiriusXM, etc. People like Android has a phone app for cars. Apple has a phone app. This is how they establish customer intimacy using enterprise computing, using a vehicle as one of those data banks. So that's what's going on, okay? And I see a question. Let me try to answer it for a minute. Yes, that you're exactly right. This is the last week where I will hold class, okay? Now here's what I'll do. During the class time, I will log in, and during the class time I'll log in, and I'll create a Zoom recording for it, or Zoom. What I'll do is I'll set up a meeting, okay, and I'll be here in case people have questions. But I won't be doing any kind of lecturing, nothing. I'll just be there waiting to see if somebody has something, a question that they want help with, okay? So that's what's going on. Now, I've looked at these two assignments. The quizzes are what they are. I've looked at the two assignments, and I wouldn't mess around with them too much. I'd get them done and get them out of the way. In fact, I really think if you're smart, you'll get this course finished and then flip back over to maybe some of the more difficult courses you may be having or whatever. And I understand that, okay? And we've covered the material that we need to cover, and we've done what we need to do. And as far as I'm concerned, if you finish your final exams way early, I don't care. You know, I'll grade them. I'll grade everything all at once. But, you know, if you choose to work ahead, which you certainly can, that would be the smart play. But during class times, it'll be basically like a virtual office hour, and I'll be there. And if you have a question, you can ask it, that type of thing. So I think hopefully that answered the question that you had there and got you rolling. Anybody else have a question? And so we've got Alyssa, Hudson, Christian, Libby's, Martin, Samuel, and Shane. Okay, glad to have all of you aboard. And again, if you missed something, scroll back. Now, one of the things, as I've tried to kind of explore this hybrid model that we're playing around with, all right, is one of the things I'm trying to kind of work, you know, to work my way through is the issue of participation and attendance. This Canvas is really more designed for looking at participation. Now, I don't give points for attendance. I think that's ridiculous. It's class, and if you're paying for it, you should be here. But I do look at the analytics, okay, and it gives me a gauge of how much someone is participating or how little they're participating. And so I have a sense of when people are engaged in the course and when they're not. Okay, so you know, those kinds of that type of data, those data are there for me, and they help me understand a little bit of how the dynamics of this work. And you're all of you are very predictable. As I've looked at each one of your profiles, you come in on certain days, you're not there certain days, and you get your work done, you turn in, that type of thing. And I'm okay with that, okay? As long as you get your work turned in, you get it done, you're good. And what I look at are things like missing assignments, or somebody who hasn't logged in for several. I've had a couple of people that haven't logged in for about 3 weeks, not at all. And you know, now they got a little bit of trouble on their hands because they haven't been participating. And typically what will happen if somebody doesn't, you know, look at the video or participate, they're not turning in work, they're headed in a bad direction. So that's been one of the things that I've had to try to work myself through. And that's just something that comes with doing this. And we're trying some of these models with undergraduate classes, graduate classes, and I'm hopeful that all of you are taking advantage of the opportunity to you know, to take this course basically on your time, and when it works for you, because some people work, some people have practice, this and that, and you know, I haven't gone so far as to say, okay, I'm gonna offer this at a time that duplicates other faculty who have a ground-based class. I don't want to compete. I'm not going to do that. But we're probably going to do a lot more of this in the future, and it does put all of you in the driver's seat, good or bad. As I say, a lot of times the way I structure my courses, it lets people learn a lot about themselves. Are they really ready, you know, for prime time? Are they ready for work or not? Well, all of that being said, we're on chapter. I'm going to spend some time today talking about chapter 12 in Loudon, and then on Wednesday on what the data, the material in chapter 13. I have some resources here that I want you to look at. And again, so much of this is kind of taking a deep dive and then going back up for air and kind of looking around this landscape and then back down. That's MIS. And as I've told you before, there's some pieces of this I feel very comfortable with, some which I don't. And that's just simply an issue in terms of personal experience and that type of thing. Now, all that being said, chapter 12 talks about tools that we use to enhance decision making. Okay, and I want to pop this down here for a minute, and I've got some slides on chapter 12, and I'm going to open those up. Okay, and I'm going to see if it will stay. Now, if you've taken business policy with me, or if you do, which is probably likelihood, I don't know. We switch around business policy now, the course here, but certainly if you take management science with me, you'll learn a lot about the decision theory, and especially these issues around big data. In fact, I talk a lot about it in data admin. I talk about all my classes because it really is a new kind of phenomenon, and it's the result of a whole lot of different things: high-speed storage, incredible amounts of storage capacity, high-speed computing, ubiquitous computing, that is phones, tablets, all kinds of things, but particularly the embedding chips or sensors into objects. So we have a lot of what we call unstructured data. Now, the diagram that's here, okay, really works you through the levels of management that are going to be dealing with this. And this is this is, it's okay, but for all intents and purposes, I'm not quite sure, okay, that you could say, that, let me put it like this. The differentiation between middle and operational management or first line supervisors is disappearing very rapidly. Companies are getting flatter and flatter and flatter because they want employees who can come in and function at both these levels. And why wouldn't they if they can get people? That's why, you know, a person with a high school education who goes to work for a big company, probably, unless they go get a degree, are not going to go anywhere. Okay, they're just not. It doesn't mean college is for everybody. Okay, what it does mean, if for that person for whom college is not the right place to be, there's always the armed services. There certainly are vocational programs and technical programs that you can go through in a year or two and come out and make a good living. And it does take some serious smarts to do a lot of that work. So, you know, but if you're going to be in management, unless you own your own business or something like that, you're really going to find out that this triangle has gotten squashed pretty flat. But they talk about semi-structured data and unstructured data, and those are data that just don't simply fit into a nice kind of table like we would want them to. Now, I want to take a look at this for just a second. And this, again, is right out of chapter 12. And this walks you through the problem-solving process and really the decision-making process, okay? And going from discovery, okay, down to solution testing, okay, or implementation. Now, if you've taken management science with me, or if you are, I don't know if I have anybody who is, but when you do, you'll hear me talk about nothing except the fact that decision-making is a continuum. The outcomes they're a continuum. It's not black or white. It's not truncated. It's a continuous kind of thing. And so one of the things that we try to do here, okay, is walk through this process. Now, this mirrors very much what is in the first 2 chapters of the management science textbook, especially chapter 1, where we talk about problem solving versus decision making. And when we move down to this part where we talk about solution testing, okay, this really does change this really changes the game. And you've probably heard me use the example before of how things were, okay, before spreadsheets. And I worked in mergers and acquisitions, did some consulting and work with that, doing cash flow analyses. And just as I was leaving, the spreadsheet programs, primarily Excel, were really starting to get muscled up. And so, you know, where it used to take us 3 or 4 months to build 5 or 6 scenarios for our clients, we could simulate data. You know, you could simulate 1,000 trials using the random function, and you could do that. You could use the optimizing. You could use optimizer to look at target values or minimization or maximizing an objective function, and this really does encapsulate that process. Okay, all IT, okay, MIS, all of those tools are designed for one purpose and one purpose only: to enhance your decision making. They are what I call decision centric. Okay, now here's another figure that walks us through that process, okay, and how we get data from the business environment, okay, over into the business intelligence infrastructure, then into the tool set, and then to managers and managerial users and methods. Now, here's what's going on. This is a process of taking that data and literally working it into a format that eventually is useful, i.e. decision-centric, okay? In the management science class, one of the things we do is we take a We take a set, two sets of tweets, a set that we know are about a product, another set that are not about the product, and we clean them up, okay? And then we create what we call tokens, so we can say, well, yeah, it's about the product, it's not about the product. And we test a predictive model. This is, that's a very simple, very, very simple example of what we call unstructured data. And you know, if you go to work for somebody and they say, okay, can you get me the housing statistics for the past 45 or 50 years? Trust me, when you start digging, you're going to find out they have those data stored in so many different formats, in so many different ways, that it's really, really tough to get them refined. So when you hear people say that 90% of the work in data and big data is in refining it, that is indeed the case. Okay, and that's taking the raw data, pulling it into the infrastructure, okay, and then into a tool set that you can use, managerial users, and you could use them with some methodology, with some methods. So that's an excellent picture of how that process all unfolds. Now, when we talk about power users or producers, these are the employees who are really making heavier users of those products and what those products are about, and then casual users. Okay, and this goes on the 80-20 rule, that about 20% of all employees in any given company use about 80% of all the data, okay? Because they're in that position, they're in that role. And as you've heard me talk about dashboards and that type of BI tool, a lot of what you will see is dependent upon your level in the company. And that's determined by your level determines what you can see and what you can't. And so you can see, okay, when you move down to this part, the what if analysis and the statistical models. Now, I understand, okay, when I run into people out there who, you know, they run a small bakery, or they run a, you know, they run a small bakery, or they have a they are contract out to say somebody like AAA, and they go out and pick up, you know, haul people's car to, you know, to be fixed, or especially smaller firms. They really don't see this until they feel this analytical modeling doesn't mean a whole lot to them until they feel the pinch. Then, as they're scrambling around trying to figure out what happened to my market, why am I not getting the sales I had, etc., that becomes an issue for them, where they have to try and build those models. Now, what typically happens is they don't, and they may be around for a while and then may get bought up, or they may just simply cease to exist. We have a lot more businesses that start and then fail than we do that start and succeed. And a lot of it, I'm convinced, is that when people go into business today, they do not understand they are competing against everybody in the world. Even if you're running a little restaurant in Shawnee, Oklahoma, you are competing against everyone else in the world, because those folks are competing for the same resources that you are. They can advertise on the internet, etc. But more importantly, supply chain issues, getting supplies, getting purchasing items that you need, say, for your product service bundle. But you can see how that kind of lays itself out. And so when you have the IT department or your CIO or whoever, they will tailor everything based upon what you've got, or what your user level is. Now, I think this is the one. Yeah, we just looked at that one. I'm going to take a look here, and I apologize a little bit for being a little bit didactic, but you know, now This is just gives you a very simple example, okay, of computing a break-even point and a little kind of tiny little BI tool that you can use. And notice something, if you look at it right there, okay, you can input data, okay, to determine you have a model here, a statistical model that you can work with. And that statistical model is really, it works from, you know, the from the total cost equation and walks you through that whole process. So that's the kind of information that you'd have on a dashboard, okay? And again, it's just going to depend upon what your role is. But you could see at these different prices, variable cost per units, and how you think you'll do and what's the break-even point. And we even did a case very similar to that in 1123. Now, one of the tools the authors talk about this is the pivot table. You've heard me say this before. The pivot table lets us get the best of both worlds, the best of a database, the best of a spreadsheet, okay? And I don't think I need to say too much more about it because I do cover the use of pivot tables in 1123. We talk about them in 4403. Those are the BISS courses, and certainly we talk about them in using them in management science. Now, this just shows you just kind of a schematic or overview, okay, of how these four factors work together in terms of the firm's strategy and objectives. It's pretty self-explanatory, not that big of a deal. Now, I'm going to go back over here to this one preview, okay, and you can see that familiar kind of flow where we want to optimize player and team performance. Everything is about optimization today, okay? Why? Because advertising is speaking to a million different people with 4 sets of ears. That's the only way I know to describe it. And everything is so tailored and so specialized and so targeted that you have to be able to do that. And if you can't, then you have to have a good level of operational excellence that will keep people coming back to you and will keep people using your product service function, okay? And so this just walks you through that cycle, kind of what I would call a virtuous cycle of moving towards business solutions and business challenges and working through them using management, organization, technology, and MIS approach, okay? Now, this week I had some other things I wanted to show you. And at first, I'm going to start with what I think is probably the most exciting development that's happening, and that's the use of location analysis. Okay, getting a feeling, and if a company doesn't use locational analysis, then they really don't understand their market. They don't understand their customers, because we know from the whole science of the social science of geography tells us about how people are spatially arranged, and so we want to know what's their profile, what do they look like? Can we model can we model where we want to put a store? Can we model how we're moving goods and services and the shipment of them? And I would encourage you to come over to ArcGIS, okay, and look at some of their products, okay? Learn a little bit about a geographic information system. Find out what that is. They have some. They have the pro. They have the online. They have an enterprise level, and they walk you through some of the industries that can use these. And that's just a few. Now, Esri does a good job of providing free training to people. They want to sell their service, but they do. And probably all of you have seen when I've taken you out to Esri Tapestry, where you looked at zip code income level, population density, age of the population, and it gave you those psychographic profiles. These types of people live in this zip code. That just barely scratches the surface. For people who are marketers, okay, I would say that the two things that they really can use from these kinds of tools would certainly be location analysis, okay, and the second would be spatial distribution of my users, spatial distribution of my supply chain, spatial distribution, and spatial distribution of my customers, okay? And so you can see they've got a lot of different things. And I would encourage you greatly to go over and explore. When you say, how could they use this in banking? Well, location analysis will tell them, where do we put our ATMs? Or where do we put our branch offices? Because so much banking is shifting online, people who are in the financial services industry they're very reluctant to go try to find a location, open it up, have people working in there, okay, paying money for salaries, etc., to keep the lights on, all that, if they don't have the foot traffic to justify it, okay? And for ATMs, it's the same story, okay? For this very simple reason, you can buy stuff with your phone, you can buy stuff with your computer, you can get money, because you can buy those, because you can use those devices to buy things and to take money out of your account. You don't need to go to an ATM and get money. ATMs are slowly but surely going to become as rare as phone booths. I don't even know if there are phone booths left in the United States. But I can guarantee you, but when cell phones came, you said bye-bye to them. So I certainly would like to, I would want you to take a look at Esri and their software and just take a look around at their products and see what they've got. So that's one resource I think is I think it's probably revolutionizing things more than we'll ever know, especially for people who work in retail, okay? Now, one of the most startling things that happened to me, it's been about a month ago. I opened up the mail, and here is a mailer from a company that delivers food. Okay, that's a big deal about that. The big deal was it was a lot of restaurants, okay, where my wife and I eat. You're talking about fast food restaurants. You're talking about people like McAllister's, where they'll deliver the food to your house. They have disrupted the industry, because before, when you ordered food and it was delivered, what was it? It was pizza. So this little company said, we're going to disrupt this, and we're going to deliver just about any type of food somebody wants to order. We'll drop it by their house. And so they had a thing where you can add the app to your phone, and you can order the food. So you can go online to a menu, and then have that food delivered. And that just blew my mind, because I thought, man, what will this do to all of these big chains out here when these folks disintermediate them, okay? And now, there's always going to be the need for people. There's always going to be people who want to go out and eat. They don't want to have their food delivered. I understand that, okay? But you and I both know there are those times when you really don't feel like getting up and going out. You just get the food delivered, okay? You're used to that with pizza. You're going to get trained. We'll all get trained to buy that type of food, to buy just about any fast food. I was completely shocked when I saw that. Wow. And they may do well. We'll see. I've used them a couple of times, and let me say this. I thought, well, if I really didn't want to get out of the house, or I was busy, boom, I'm good to go. So I think these kinds of tools are very useful. And I think as we see retail locations disintermediated, in other words, we start to see, we see it already with the malls, okay? This is, why are the malls emptying out? Why are they losing business? It's simple. It's a thing called the internet. It's a company called Amazon. Walmart's in that game now. Everybody has everybody has some type of web presence and e-commerce. And while e-commerce, as we talked about earlier, is such a small part of all retail trade runs a very thin margin, okay? And when you slice even a little bit of that margin off, you really can put people into a world of hurt, because you make many of those outlets, you make them simply untenable, okay? In the food industry for years, the profit margins have been somewhere overall, an average, somewhere around, I think, 3 to 5%. And you can check me out on that, but they're pretty thin. They're pretty thin for retail or for fast food places. And so as we see this disintermediation come, where people can go I can order my McDonald's, my Big Mac, and have it delivered at home. I can, I order my Arby's and have it delivered to my house. What will that do to those businesses? And I thought it was interesting, and it was really startling. We've used the service a couple of times, and it's not bad, And once they train us to buy more than pizza, and this is the same thing as what Walmart is doing in terms of trying to get people to come in and shop online. Well, I wanted to tell you about that and really get you thinking about how you can use locational data and geographic information systems to understand your business better. Primarily, it's spatial distribution of supply chain, spatial distribution of customers, spatial distribution of your locations, and then the characteristics or dimensions of those people around them, okay? And there's just so much stuff there. Who knows what type of company you might end up working for where you might want to use that data. Now, this is another resource I wanted to share with you, okay? And this is Tableau. Some of you may have used it. Tableau is what I call one of those, is a first generation hybrid analytical tool. It can crunch numbers. It can provide you infographics. It can create maps. It's kind of like a Swiss Army knife, which we've all been asking for and wanting. Get me something I can take my data and look at it in a lot of different ways. I can map things, etc. And Tableau is quite easy to use. You can download the free version of it, okay? And you can play with it and you can experiment with it. They market this quite heavily, and they do have a lot of users who utilize it versus Excel. Now, will it ever take over Excel? I don't know, okay? But I can tell you this, it's easy to use, and it can give you some incredibly nice and very well designed data visualizations. And so stuff that might be just really an exercise in terror when you're trying to create a chart in Excel, this thing will take stuff and make it look really pretty and beautiful. So you can take a look at it. They have a free version, and you would want to take a look at it and play around with it. And I can't emphasize enough, it's one of these hybrid tools that tries to do everything, okay? And so it has excellent spreadsheeting and data analysis capabilities. On the other hand, it also has database capabilities, and then the kicker in all of it is it can take locational data and create maps. So it's quite a tool, and I would encourage you to become familiar with it, because you may go out for a job interview and have somebody ask you, hey, what do you know about Tableau? Have you ever used it? Well, you could say, yeah, and you could download it for free on your machine and try it and see how it works. So I'd take a look at that for sure. All righty, now back over here for just a moment. And I think what it is, I think I knocked myself out of the chat, out of my room. So let me go back over here for just a minute and get back into the, maybe not. Nope, I think I did. That's all right. Let me go back over here real quickly. And I'll go back into Canvas. And pop back over here. Okay, now I'm showing you some of these resources that I think it would be worth your while to take a look at. Now, I have links to a couple of products, okay, that are out there for analyzing or working with big data. SAS has a nice, this is a nice little overview of their services and products. SAP has something similar. IBM, that really is their deal, okay? And IBM is really geared towards more of people. They're wanting to market themselves to people who manufacture large, sophisticated items like airplanes, cars, and utilize their computing power and utilize some of their advances in artificial intelligence to manage the data that they get from sensor feeds and feed those into a dashboard. And I think, if you've had a class with me, when I've talked about dashboards, I've probably taken out there and said, here's a dashboard for a 777, and it's unbelievable. All the stuff there to monitor. Well, human beings get overwhelmed with all that. So folks like IBM are designing what they call fly-by-wire systems. They've been around for about 40 years now, okay? And again, IBM is, one of their things is smart planets, smart cities, putting sensors all over to manage, rainfall. If there's rainfall, what part of the city streets get flooded the most, all kinds of uses, or anything that has to do with trying to collect large scale kinds of data. Now I'm just going to pop over here for a minute, okay, and let you see it. And you say, Dr. Harmon, there's just a lot of this stuff is just, you're saying, well, this and this, and it's true. All of us who work with this, everybody is completely overwhelmed in terms of all these products that are being developed and just simply all of the data that's out there, okay? And think about it for a moment. Think about, say, a stadium. Let's think. Well, take Gaylord Memorial Stadium Saturday night. Okay, how do the vendors gear up to know they've got enough whatever they sell to people who go there and eat and don't tailgate but buy vended goods? How do they know how much to order and all those kinds of things? How do they get the crowd in there and get them out? Those are the kinds of things that these analyses can work through, okay? And again, SAP has those types of big data tools, as does Oracle. And again, they have some interesting some interesting information here about what big data, why it's important, what it can do for you, and then they give you some white papers that you can read and some summaries, because it's obvious they want to sell you their product, okay? And we understand that, but it's useful to see what those folks are doing. We'll move back over here, okay? And here is a kind of a think tank over at Harvard, and this is the Institute for Quantitative Social Sciences over at Harvard University, okay? And they're using these types of tools understand and look at problems, social problems, and again, trying to get a picture of these things and trying to get longitudinal data, and you know, where is it, you know, where are we building next in the city? Where should we not build? Where should we not? Handling zoning, all kinds of things. You'll see that I think this is an interesting resource for you to get a handle on the ways that people in the social sciences are reacting to and trying to utilize big data and to use these analytical tools that are out there, especially those that provide them predictive analytics. Okay, so I would certainly encourage you to go there and to take a look at that. Okay, so those are some resources that you could take a look at, you can learn about, and I would encourage you to do that. What you're going to find, okay, is when you go to work, you're going to be in the same leaky boat I'm in. I have to teach this stuff, so all of these different kinds of tools, I have to play with them and know a little bit about them, because it's about once a year, our advisory council or some of our alumni will contact us and go, are students learning to use this type of enterprise computing tool, or are they using Tableau? Are they exposed to that? Do they use SAP, Oracle, SAS? And so I just keep adding in things, and the BISS 1123 class, the students who took it even 3 years ago wouldn't even recognize it today. I've introduced some new kinds of things into it, some predictive things, some location analysis. I have an exercise on it. I think they do a SAP and then we do Oracle in 4403. And so these tools, your worth to an employer is going to be your decision-making skills, okay, and your ability to quickly and easily adapt to the software, especially the BI software they're going to put in front of you, okay. They probably won't give you a training program. They'll probably just say, here it is, figure this out. And one of the good things is hopefully you're learning how to go in and look at a spreadsheet and understand it's got menus and how it's thrown together. The same thing with the database, so that you kind of have a feeling of what these products, what they look like. Well, over in chapter 12, and I want to just show you a couple of other things there. That's some tabular tables that are certainly worth looking at. And these show you some of the annual value, okay, of decision makers. We know, for example, that when a person gets laid off from a job, they take with them about $25,000 on average of information that's in their head, their knowledge. And you can see from this table the type of a decision and who the decision maker is, the kinds of decisions they make on an annual basis, the estimated value, and the estimated annual value of those decisions. When I first started studying business a long time ago, if you took the Fortune 500, 80 to 90% of their worth was tied up in things, plants, offices, equipment, boats, planes, all tangible, what we would call tangible fixed assets. Today, it's reversed itself. It's customer lists, it's trademarks, branding, it's proprietary data like a patent or some kind of trade secret. It's customer lists. It's the person who's been a salesperson for you for 20 years who knows everybody and understands buying purchases. So human beings are going to increase more and more in value, okay? You hear a whole lot about automation and robots, and I think that's understandable. They can, at this point, okay, they can handle repetitive tasks. They can handle some kinds of of decisional tasks, but you remain the smartest thing on this planet, okay? And you will be probably for the next 25 or 30 years. But what those tools can do for you is they can give you a lot firmer picture of what's out there because of our ability to collect and process that data so quickly. Let me give you an example, and you've heard me talk about this before. The United States Census is one of the most important things that we do. We use the census to determine all kinds of things about our country. We use it to determine congressional districts. We use it to figure out, are people in the United States poorer? Are they richer? How many people live in a household? On and on and on. Anything that you as a business person, especially if you're a marketer, would want to know, the census has it. And I thought I would just teach a course in J-term, I may do it one of these days, on the census, the data that are there. Because if you become a power user with census data, you've tapped into something. Now, the census is conducted, the big one, every 10 years, okay? So and it takes time for them to figure out their sampling method, then to hire people to go out and do the work, and then do the work and gather the data and report it back. Now, this shows you the power of information and the power of an algorithm, okay? The people at Esri, and I've taken you out to Esri Tapestry before, they have developed an algorithm that's about 90 to 95% accurate in terms of the census of the United States. And they run it every year, okay? And since they run it every year, they've got the best data available, which is why, you know, they're kind of the masters of the universe in terms of understanding. Somebody bought something in Seattle at 3 o'clock in the morning. Who was it? Where are they from? What did they buy? How much did they spend, etc. So I can't. When I started studying them, and I took some courses to kind of refresh my mapping skills and so forth, it blew me away about that when I learned that's how they keep their edge. They've built an algorithm, okay? And it's pretty good when you're 99.5% dead on with the census, not bad. And so that's why information is such a powerful thing. But if you look at the value of these people, okay, the value of a firm of a single improved decision, okay? Here's one. Think about, and you've heard me talk about Southwest Airlines, which was founded by a man named Herb Kelleher. How valuable is Herb? Well, he's the guy who said, if we can shave 10 minutes off of our downtime, that is the plane taxis in, we get people off, we clean the thing up, we restock it, we get it in the air. If we can shave 10 minutes off of that, we can become an industry leader. And so they worked on that. Now that came out of his head, okay? Popped right out of his head. And what's it worth? Well, billions of dollars, because they've become an industry leader. And another was an idea of, gee, if I fly from Oklahoma City to Dallas, here's how I should price the ticket. How much would it cost me to drive from Oklahoma City to Dallas? Okay? Because he knew that within a certain amount of distance and time, people, if they can get there a lot quicker, will do so. And if it costs them about as much as it would to drive, they'll jump on a plane. How much is that worth? Okay? Well, this gives you some idea of why we invest so much in you in terms of understanding technology and trying to understand that technology is decision-centric and how to work on your decision-making skills. Because you can see, for every improved decision, you can see the kind of money that's worth it, that it's worth. A guy who runs Amazon, what is he worth when he said, you know, I think I'll just why have a physical library when I can put it on the internet? And the rest is history. Or Sam Walton, who said, I think what I'll do is I'm going to make a great big old grocery store so I can buy stuff in bulk. Okay? And while I figure out how to do my retail shtick, in other words, how to have the store ought to look, the employees ought to work, etc., I'm going to put my Walmarts out in regional towns, Springfield, Shawnee, Joplin, and then I'll go to the big cities once I've got my act perfected. Okay, and the rest is history. So human beings, it's going to be a long time before you'll have a machine that will have that kind of insight, I guarantee you, if they ever do. So I wanted to show you that so you understand what kind of an investment. And they give you some examples here, okay, of some MIS applications, okay, and with some companies of how they're using this for improved decision making. Again, the competition is so intense, and it's global, okay? And I can't emphasize enough to you, okay, that it is. One of my favorite things to do, and I'll pop this back up here, is to ask people. I like to do this at dinner with people. It's always fascinating to hear how they respond, is to ask them, tell me, what percentage of the world's goods are shipped via water? And you'd be surprised. Most people go, 10%. A few of them will go, they'll go 60%. Most of them will say 30 to 40%. When I tell them it's 90%, it blows their minds. But it is. And that's why places like the South China Sea or the Gulf of Hormuz or the Sinai Peninsula or the Panama Canal or the Mediterranean Ocean or the North Atlantic Ocean or the English Channel or the St. Lawrence Seaway are such incredibly important places, because 90% of everything made gets shipped by water. It's the cheapest way to do it. And as more and more things are made overseas, if we want it, we buy it it gets here by boat. If the British want it, the people in England, anybody, you're usually getting stuff sent to you via boat. If not, the components come. So if you have an automobile assembly plant in Mexico, yeah, they just drive past the border, right? They get through the border and they haul their goods up here and sell them. They take a Ford plant. Anybody who has a manufacturing plant down there, gets their goods and brings it north, because we're the largest trading partner. But the components came across the sea. Well, I think that I've given you some food for thought, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to give you a challenge, okay? As I've said before many times, I really do truly believe that my courses help you learn a lot about yourself. And that is, can you manage your time? How serious are you about what you plan to do for the rest of your life? Are you going to try to prepare yourself to go into an interview and truly be the best qualified person in the room starting out? Are you going to be an enterprise thinker? Are you going to think like a business owner? Those are the people who get promoted. And I want you to be successful and do that, not because I think it's important you make a lot of money, okay? Or even that we hope that you'll go out and make $1 billion and give it back to you. It's because as people of faith, a community of faith, who we represent, okay, says everything to people out in the world about us, okay? And so we should always strive for that type of thing. And I try to give you the freedom to learn, to look at some things. And so I'll challenge you today to go over to one or two of these sources. Back when we say this, go over to Esri and Tableau. Play around with them a little bit, okay? Not because you're going to get some extra credit points, but because you are dedicated to your craft. You're dedicated to your art. I guarantee you, and you've heard me say this before, if you were an art student, I'd be saying go out and look at great art to see the techniques and see what's done. When you go in and do business somewhere, go in and start looking at it with a different set of eyes. Look around and ask yourself, what's their value proposition? In other words, what is it that they offer me that nobody else around here does for me? How do they manage their logistics and their supply chain? How do they manage? How does this menu all put together? Or when you order stuff from Amazon, where did it come from? Okay, and tracking it and how long, and look at the packaging. You see, I know that there's going to be some of you, maybe not all of you, but some of you who are going to go, I'll take that challenge. And I hope that you do, because that is where you'll start to really cut your teeth and become a really good business person, okay? And so I would challenge you to go out and take a look at Esri mapping. Look at any one of those. I think certainly I'd start with Esri and Tableau, because I think you're going to see some really interesting stuff, and play around with them today. Well, it's about 2:50, okay? We have about 25 minutes here. And I think we've covered enough ground, okay, in terms of looking at big data, the analytics. You have some assignments that are due, that were due. One that was due on the 13th, which is today, another that's due on the 17th. And again, I think one of the last examples I want to show you, and then I'm going to end this for today. In the session, I know some of you are going, why not your life? I know, I understand. If you take a look at this, okay, and this is over on page 484 in your textbook. This is a thermal, okay, and this thermal shows us, okay, it uses it's a geographic information system that tracks the number of county, the number of counties and the range of strokes, or stroke hospitalization rate per 1,000. Okay, so the darker, the more people are going in with strokes. Now, if I'm Humana, okay, I'm looking at this and saying, wow, this should make me rethink my premiums. If I'm St. Anthony's, I'm looking at this and going, wow. If I'm a heart center, there's Cancer Centers of America, and I think there are probably also cardiac care centers that are retail. That's all they do, okay? That's their thing. You can look at this and go, wow. There's a part of the country where this is off the charts, and another part of the country where there's probably not people, or maybe they have a different lifestyle, who knows? But you can really see, and you can really see that data there in terms of the distribution, and it really helps you say, okay, it helps you focus where you should put your efforts, okay? And loaded on top of this, you could start to also load on top a lot of data, like lifestyle data. How does this look in terms of smoking? People who are more who are reported as diabetic, 1 or 2, etc. Okay, this gives me something to look at and to make a decision about. Okay, and it gives me a picture of the terrain, a picture of the people out there that I'm trying to serve or work with, and it's just I think is one of the best ways to kind of say this really does exemplify what we can do. Well, the chapter talks some about sensitivity analysis, which is good, and we do a little bit of that in 1123, and we certainly do we're doing some sensitivity analysis in management science. So I'd say take a look at it and read it a little bit. I'm not going to go at any great lengths. Sensitivity analysis is a real simple proposition, and that is, what if I take a particular variable and I change it, what kind of change does it provoke in some bottom line, okay? And I'll just show you a very simple example. I'll close this off for just a second. And this is an old file from, you'll recognize that. This is an old file from BISS 1123, problem analysis. Well, let's say I'm going to have my net sales are 100 million. My cost of goods sold, okay, those are about 30 million. My SG&A My sales general administrative costs are, let's call it 40. Okay. Now, I'm going to make this a minus number. Okay. I'm going to take both. I'm going to make this negative. Okay. I'll make this negative. Now I'm ready to come down here and start with my gross profits. And boom. My gross profits are 30. Now, if I want to improve my gross profits, I can try to do some things. If I improve gross profits by 10%, in other words, my goal is 33, okay, I could use the goal seek to try and get that. So I'm going to click on data here. Let's see what we can do this. I click what if analysis. I'll do the goal seek. And I'm going to set the cell here on the gross to 33 by changing the cell for sales. Okay? And let's see what we get. Okay? Let's stop with this and think about this for a moment. And this is sensitivity analysis just kind of encapsulated. Now, I wanted to get a 10% jump in my gross. Okay? So I wanted a gross of 33. Right now it's at 30. To get there, I had to increase net sales to 103. So I'm basically talking about, all right, a one-to-one proposition, basically. This is, and we'll take this as 103. Oh, didn't do my equal sign. All right. That's one of the, and this equals now. For every 3% bump on sales, I bumped my gross by 10%. Now, the question is, how easy will it be to get that additional 3% in sales? What will I have to spend, or what will I have to do? But is it possible for me to do something else? So I know that gross is very sensitive to net sales. What if I were able to get cost of goods sold down 10%? It's probably going to be easier for me to do that than it would to go get those additional 3% of sales. So I'm going to move this back up to 100, okay? And I'm going to take this COGS down to 330. I'm going to take that down to 27. And I'm reducing it by 10%, and boom. So the sales gives me a good kick, but the sales are riskier, and it would be a strategic decision. And I would just simply work through the what-if analysis to determine what's the sensitivity point. Where do I get the biggest percentage change out of this? That's all the sensitivity analysis really is. Well, folks, I appreciate it. And I will be, I'll give you a pre-recorded screencast on Wednesday. And then starting next week, I will be online. I'll have the meeting room open. So if you want to come in and ask a question, you can. Okay? Thank you so much, and enjoy seeing a lot of your work, and we'll take care. So I'm going to stop the share now, and I'm going to stop the recording.